Luke 2, 1 through 20. And now Luke 2, 1 through 20. In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged and who was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for her to deliver her child, and she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in bands of cloth, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place in the guest room. Now in that same region there were shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. Then an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid, for see, I am bringing you good news of great joy for all the people. To you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign for you. You will find a child wrapped in bands of cloth and lying in a manger." And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of heavenly hosts praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace among those whom he favors." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go now to Bethlehem and see this thing that has taken place, which the Lord has made known to us." So they went with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the child lying in the manger. And when they saw this, they made known what had been told them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds told them. And Mary treasured all these words and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, just as it had been told them. The word of the Lord. Well, friends, there's an unspoken question that most of us have in our hearts that starts early in life. Do I matter? Not necessarily do people know my name, but more along the lines of, would anyone notice if I weren't here? Am I known? Am I seen? In most systems, schools, workplaces, and even in families, there are people who are seen and known and people who are overlooked. The ones with titles, the ones without. The ones invited into the room where decisions are made, and the ones who stay outside, doing the work no one wants to do but everyone depends on. That's where the shepherds lived, outside, on the outskirts, living among the brambles and the wolves, outside on the edge of the community and not in the community exactly. And that's precisely where the Christmas story is told first. Luke begins his narrative with the baby Jesus with emperors and decrees. In those days, a decree went out for Emperor Augustus. A decree. This is the language of power, Rome, census, control, order. It sounds like the kind of world where only the important people matter. But does God broadcast great news for the world through a palace or through a king and queen? No. God broadcasts greatness through a baby, not in Rome, but in Bethlehem. Not to Caesar, but to shepherds. Luke is already preaching before the angels ever sing. Shepherds were not quaint, gentle figures in first century Palestine. They were poor, often uneducated, not very religious, and socially invisible. They lived on the margins. They were necessary but not respected. They were relied upon but not welcomed, a bit like garbage men. And they're the first people God chooses to trust with the good news. If God had waited for the right audience, the angels would have gone to the priests in the temple, the scholars in Jerusalem, or the powerful in Rome. Instead, heaven breaks open in a field full of sheep, because in God's kingdom, everyone matters, especially the ones the world forgets, like a mom of a special needs kid in a grocery store. I walked into Target already telling myself not to get my hopes up. I had done this so many times over the past 8 months that it started to feel like a routine I didn't even think about anymore. Park the car, grab a cart, take a deep breath. walk to the frozen section, scan the doors, feel that familiar drop in my stomach, walk away disappointed, and pretend it didn't matter. Except it did matter. Not to most people, maybe, not in the way the big serious things in life matter, but when you're parenting a child who's both wonderfully bright and intensely particular, small things stop being small. They become part of how the day works. They become part of what helps your child feel safe. They become part of the fragile structure you build around your family so they can get through mornings without tears and lunches without battles. My son Eli is 9 years old, and he's autistic. And he's the kind of picky eater that isn't about being stubborn or spoiled. It's about predictability. It's about texture and taste and routines that feel steady in a world that often doesn't for him. When a food he relies on disappears, it isn't just a minor inconvenience. It can mean anxiety that lasts all day. It can mean a lunchbox coming home untouched and the school calling me repeatedly. It can mean a meltdown that looks so big to others, but really to him, it's just his nervous system trying to get regulated. Eli's safe lunch, his safe lunch has always been one specific thing: frozen peanut butter and grape sandwiches called Lunchables with reduced sugar, whole wheat. Now, the exact kind matters. The wrong bread feels wrong, the wrong jelly's wrong, the wrong sweetness throws him off. If you've never lived with an extremely selective eater who has autism, then it's hard to understand how specific it can be and how deeply that specificity is tied to comfort. Well, back in March, those sandwiches disappeared from all over the freezer sections. I checked Target, I checked all the grocery stores, I checked online, and every time I thought I had it right, it'd be the wrong version, or it was out of stock by the time I clicked the button. Month after month of searching. At first, I was pretty calm about it. I told myself it was temporary, supply chain issues, a weird shortage, a seasonal gap. I tried making them myself with whole wheat bread and reduced sugar grape jelly, even bought one of those special little cutters you could seal the edges with to look like the store-bought ones. Well, Eli took one bite and pushed it away as if I'd handed him something dangerous. No, 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 not that, not that, not that. I tried different brands, I tried different textures, I tried different breads. Each attempt ended the same way. I wanted to cry over it more than once, not because the sandwich mattered to me, because I was watching how hard it was for Eli to cope with yet another change he didn't choose. By the time 8 months had passed, I was tired. Tired of feeling like I was failing at something that should be simple. Tired of planning lunches like a military precision. Tired of trying to explain to people why it's just a sandwich is not helpful. Tired of being the parent who carries the mental load of every small detail because those small details keep the day from collapsing. That day I was in Target for other things, but I walked toward the frozen section anyway. I told myself it was pointless, but I also knew I'd regret it if I didn't check. Hope is kind of stubborn, especially when you're a parent. I stood in front of the freezer doors and scanned. Frozen waffles, macaroni and cheese, breakfast items, ice cream bars. Nope, no sign of what I was looking for. I felt that familiar surge of frustration, the kind that's too big for the situation, but not actually about the situation. It was about months of searching. It's about feeling like everything is harder than it should be. It's about watching your child struggle and not being able to fix it with one simple trip to the grocery store. I turned to leave, and I saw an employee, a young guy, stocking items a few feet away. He had a Target shirt on, and his sleeves were pulled up, and he was moving quickly, kind of focused on his work. He looked to be in his mid-20s, the age where people kind of often assume you don't have any life experience. But something about his face, the calm and open face, made me pause. And I almost didn't say anything. I didn't want to be that customer. I didn't want to sound dramatic. I didn't want to dump my emotions on a stranger who was just trying to do his job. But then I thought of Eli's untouched lunches, of the stress that had built up in our house, and I heard myself speak. "Hi," I said, trying to sound casual. "I'm looking for a really specific kind of Uncrustables, the grape reduced sugar whole wheat. I haven't been able to find them since March." He looked up, and instead of giving me the polite, usual retail expression, the one that says, "I'll help you, but I'm already bracing for my next task," his face changed. His eyes sharpened with attention, like he was actually listening. Since March? He repeated, surprised. I nodded, and the words started spilling out because once you've held frustration in for so long, it doesn't take much to open the floodgate. Yeah, I said, I know it sounds silly. It's just a sandwich. But my son, he's autistic and extremely picky, and basically it's the only lunch he'll eat, and it's been 8 months of searching, and I'm just tired. There, I said it. I felt my cheeks kind of heat, and I felt kind of ridiculous. I felt like I just handed a stranger the messy insides of my life. But he didn't act awkward. He didn't smile tightly. He didn't brush it off. He softened. I don't think that's silly at all, he said quietly. That's a big deal if it's a big deal to your kid. The sentence landed like a hand on my shoulder, because so many people didn't say that. They minimize. They suggest your child should just learn or get over it. They assume it's the parenting that needs to be stronger rather than a nervous system that needs support. This Target guy, he didn't do any of that. He asked a few questions. What size box? What exact label? Whole wheat, not regular. Reduced sugar, not standard. He listened as if he was gathering clues for something important. We talked for a few minutes, and then he said he would check the system. His name was Miles, at least that's what his name tag said. Miles tapped on a handheld device, and he scanned a freezer door tag, and he frowned slightly and then shook his head. It says we should get them sometime, he murmured, but it's not showing on the floor right now. I forced a smile. That's okay, I said quickly. I didn't want to put pressure on him. I appreciate you even looking. I know you have work to do. Thank you. He nodded, still thoughtful. I'm sorry, he said sincerely. I wish I had a better answer. We wished each other well in that brief kind of way that strangers do when they've kind of shared a little pocket of their honesty of their lives. Then I walked away to finish my shopping, and my heart was still heavy, but also oddly lighter, because for a moment, just a moment, I had felt understood. I wasn't invisible, and my child wasn't invisible. 15 minutes later, I was on another aisle comparing groceries, the laundry detergent, all the prices, comparing them, when I heard someone call out softly, Ma'am, excuse me. I turned, and there was Miles. He was walking toward me quickly, holding a cardboard case in both arms like he was carrying something precious. His face was bright with that kind of excitement you don't usually see on retail employees during a shift. I stared at him, not understanding what I was seeing. He held the case up slightly. I found them. For a second, my brain refused to believe it. Then I saw the label on the box, grape, reduced sugar, whole wheat. The exact sandwiches. My mouth fell open. Miles kept talking, words tumbling out the way mine had earlier. I remember the delivery truck was here today. I thought maybe there was a chance. I went out back and I asked, and then I checked the pallets, and honestly, I didn't think I'd find them, but I wanted to try. I felt something rise up inside me so fast it startled me. Tears. Big, uncontrollable tears, the kind that don't ask permission. I started crying right there in the middle of the aisle, and not delicate tears, not a quiet single sniff. I ugly cried. My face got hot, my throat tightened, my eyes blurred. I didn't care who saw. I didn't care that it probably looked ridiculous to anyone passing by, a grown adult crying over frozen sandwiches, because it was never about the sandwiches. It was about 8 months of carrying something that felt small to everyone else, but felt enormous in our home. It was about every time I felt like I was failing my child because I couldn't find the one thing that made lunch easy and made him feel safe. It was about the exhaustion of being the person who has to figure it out every day. It's about the way the world can feel cold and dismissive when your family's needs don't fit the usual mold. Miles stood there holding the case, looking a little startled by my reaction, but not uncomfortable, not embarrassed, just present. I'm sorry, I choked out. I know this is so stupid. It's not stupid, he immediately said, steady and kind. It's not stupid at all. I wiped my face and I laughed a little bit through my tears. You don't even understand what this means, I said. You have no idea. Miles nodded slowly. I think I do, he replied softly. I might not know your exact situation, but I get what it's like when something small is actually huge for someone you love. That's when I cried harder. Because humanity has felt heavy lately. Like everyone is rushing, everyone is sharp, everyone is tired and disconnected. And I've been struggling with that. I've been struggling with the feeling that people don't care anymore. And then this young man, 25 years old, in the middle of his shift, chose to care. He chose to try. He chose to walk out to a delivery truck and search through stock for a stranger's kid because he heard the emotion in my voice and decided that it mattered. It wasn't about his job. It was about his heart. I thanked him over and over, still sniffling, still wiping my face. I told him he had no idea how much this meant to our family, to our home, how much peace it would bring to Eli's day, and how much relief it would bring to mine. Miles just smiled and said, "Hey, glad I could help." When I got home, I carried the case inside like it was a treasure. Eli saw the box and froze. Then his face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. You got them. You got them. Like he didn't trust it yet. I got them, I said, hugging him carefully. As I put them into the freezer and stacking them up neatly, I thought about Miles, about his expression when he listened, about the way he didn't brush me off, about the way he ran toward me in that aisle proud of what he found. Sometimes the world changes in one fell swoop, not through headlines or big speeches, but through one ordinary person choosing compassion, choosing to see the person who feels unseen, me. A frozen sandwich case should not be a miracle. And yet in that moment, it was, because it wasn't the food that restored my faith. It was the person who cared enough to go looking. You know, friends, this is the good news of Christmas. If the shepherds matter, then the tired matter, the overlooked matter. We need to expand our thinking of what an outcast looks like. The moms with the autistic kids matter. The caregivers trapped in their home matter. The husband or wife of an alcoholic spouse matter. The parents of a medically complicated child matter. The ones who feel like they don't belong matter. The ones who do the quiet, faithful work at Target matter. And you matter. All of you matter. Not because of your resume and not because of your influence and not because of your certainty or your perfection. You matter because, like the shepherds, you were given a sign. You will find him wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger. Love might be miracles in the sky to a bunch of shepherds in a field, but love also means going out to the truck that was just delivered and taking a chance on finding some special peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then searching the store for the woman who had love for her child. This is godly love. God chose to come close through a baby, through the news to those shepherds, and God still chooses to come close through us because the work is not done. You see, when we truly believe that everyone, every person matters, we start to live like it. We start to notice who's missing. We make more room at the table. We listen more carefully. We tell the story we've been trusted with. You will find him wrapped in swaddling cloths and lying in a manger. Because Christmas begins in a field with people the world forgot, but God never did. He sent love, and so should we. Amen.